Hello, viewers, and welcome to Novus Talks with me, your host, Novus Corvius. And let's talk about the Game Awards. They just happened a few days ago, and things did not go as expected at all, in both a good and a bad way. For a start, literally nothing on my predictions list was there. We did not see The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. We did not see Pokemon Legends. We did not see Sparks of Hope. We did not see Splatoon, Bayonetta, Dread DLC, Metroid Prime 4, or a 3D Mario game. Although me and a friend joked that during the show when Nintendo did that sizzle thing, technically we did see all of these games then, but we didn't get any new announcements. Nintendo had no presence at the Game Awards. But it's not all bad news though, because Metroid Dread won Best Action Adventure Game. And that was really exciting. I was telling myself going into the show, look, no matter what happens, whether or not we get all of these games or any of them, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter because Metroid Dread is nominated. And even if it doesn't win any awards, they're still going to be playing Metroid music. So it will have a presence at the show in some capacity regardless. And it did win Best Action Adventure Game, which was incredible, and Doug Bowser gave that speech and he seemed kind of weirdly emotional in it. Unfortunately, we didn't win Game of the Year, which was a bit disappointing, but I surprisingly wasn't as gutted about that as I thought I might be. It Takes Two was the game that won instead, and I'm sure it's a fine game. I remember seeing gameplay of it at the start of the year, but I kind of completely forgot that game exists. I do feel, and maybe it's because I'm biased here, that Metroid Dread was the only game that truly deserved it out of everything there, but regardless, I was fine because it didn't feel rigged. And that's the important thing with this year's Game Awards. Compared to last year, it didn't feel like there was any rigging. Because last year, The Last of Us and Among Us won everything. All the awards categories were won by those two games, and it was very fishy, especially since nobody really liked The Last of Us Part 2. So last year was very bit strange. This year things were more even. It felt like every game had a fair and even shot at winning an award, and that's what I like. I liked that when it came to Game of the Year or Best Action Adventure Game, there was no clear definitive winner. Everything had an equal chance, and that's the way it should be. That's why I really preferred this year's show over the previous years. Now, that being said, I did have my problems with the Game Awards this year. There was way too many commercials. The awards were very spread apart, and whenever they did come up, they were kind of rapid fired. And then it was back to yet another Amazon commercial, and then it was jumping into some Hollywood actor stuff. And it's fine if those actors have relevance to gaming, like Jim Carrey with the Sonic movie or Keanu Reeves or whatever. But when it's just random people, it's come on, these people have no reason to be there. And it was one of my biggest problems with the show this year. I felt like if the show was half the length, if the show was only two hours long, it would have been fine. But it was 4 hours, and it was kind of hard to maintain interest toward the end. Mainly because here in Europe, it was 5 a.m. by the time the Game Awards were wrapping up. But even still, they could have cut so much content down. But regardless, it is something that I think will always be a complaint with the Game Awards. And Jeff Keighley, to his credit, he did a little podcast on Twitter a couple of days ago where he invited people on to offer any feedback on the Game Awards, what they liked, didn't like, and he seemed to take a lot of it on board and explain some of his reasons for certain things. And that's one of the things I like about Jeff Keighley. A lot of people, they either straight up like him or they don't, and I do get the impression that he is genuinely an honest man who likes and cares about what he does. I just think that sometimes the money side of it kind of overtakes, but overall I feel like he's a genuinely honest man, and I think that shows through, especially when you see how excited he was during some of those announcements. Speaking of which, there wasn't much to get excited about. Most of it was just generic filler garbage you see every year, but there were a few announcements that were really exciting. For me personally, Star Wars Eclipse, what an announcement. Unfortunately, my reaction is lost because I recorded the first hour and a half of my reaction to the show, but it took up like all my storage. So then I had to delete that, and then I recorded the second hour, and nothing really happened in the second hour except the videos you did see, like Halo and Dread winning and things like this. So I missed out on the Sonic movie and on my Star Wars reactions. That's a real shame because I would have loved to have gotten those up. But regardless, Star Wars Eclipse looks incredible. It looks nothing like a Star Wars game for a fact, but the fact we're going back to this prequel era and there's so many references and it looks so much darker and more ominous. It really felt ominous when watching, and I'm really excited for that. And granted, it's a cinematic trailer, so the game itself probably won't be that good, but in comparison. But either way, I'm excited to see this unique take on Star Wars. And it's in really early development, so it's probably not coming out till like 2025, but it looks really cool, and I can't wait to see more of that in the years ahead. Obviously, the Sonic movie, didn't care about the Sonic game, but the Sonic movie looks pretty good. I saw the first one, I did a review on it, and it was pretty good. It wasn't as good as Detective Pikachu, but it was still pretty good. And to have Jim Carrey as like the proper Eggman now is going to be really interesting to see. And the first one was an entertaining movie that's like took parallels and references and respected its source material. And hopefully they can do a bit more of that with the sequel. But it looks entertaining, and I can't wait for that. Apart from that, obviously, the Halo TV show, like, wow. I mentioned it in my reaction video, but I have just started getting into Halo recently. Over the past week, I've been researching all the lore because with the release of Infinite, I've realized I know absolutely nothing about Halo because I've only ever played the campaign of Halo 4 and the multiplayer of Halo 4, Halo 3, 2, and Reach. So I've never really experienced most of the campaign. So I've been refreshing my mind over the last week. And so that announcement came at a funny time because, as you might have seen, I was pointing out things I recognized, and it was so weird for me to be able to say that as someone who's completely oblivious to Halo like 2 weeks ago. But that was really exciting, and obviously Master Chief just looks really badass and cool, and I'm really excited to see what happens with that show. Apart from that, for me personally, there wasn't really anything else exciting there. There was a few times where me and my friend were getting excited over, there was a few horror games teased, and it looked like Silent Hill. There was like the initials SH at one point, and it became like Splitterhead or something. Hideo Kojima was mentioned. Just all these little things that had me going, holy shit, that there's a new Silent Hill game. Unfortunately, no. And unfortunately, the announcements I think that Jeff Keighley was referring to from 2 years ago wasn't Silent Hill, it wasn't Metroid or Zelda, it was Hellblade, I think. So that was disappointing, but overall it didn't make the show any bit worse in my mind. I still enjoyed the show. Weaker than previous years, like it's still like not the greatest, but it was definitely a huge improvement over last year. So I can say that at least. But obviously the big shock was the fact that Nintendo like had no presence there. Other than to accept an award for Metroid Dread, they didn't do anything. I thought when Doug Bowser pulled out that leaflet to read developer statements that they would have an announcement right there and then for DLC, but no, nothing. None of these games had anything to show, and while that was disappointing, I'm not like angry about it. I'm not losing my mind. I am disappointed that they didn't show Bayonetta 3 or Breath of the Wild because it was the last chance for those two games to appear at the Game Awards, and they both come out next year, presumably before the Game Awards, so this was our last chance. The next time we could see these games is probably E3. So that was a real pity, but look, it is what it is at the end of the game. At the end of the day, Nintendo doesn't always stick to the same pattern. They're always surprising us, so should we really be surprised in that regard? What else? Obviously no Pokemon or 3D Mario or Splatoon either, which surprised me because I did think that with the absence of Smash, they would try and have at least one game to fill the gap. Maybe Splatoon, but no, nothing at all. So that's genuinely surprising, and I don't know if this means that Nintendo doesn't see value in the Game Awards anymore, or if it just means that they'd rather keep all their cards close to their chest, because obviously they could have shown something if they wanted to. They have so much coming out next year. They obviously have some footage for something that they could have shown. But I think they're holding off because maybe they see their own directs as bigger and more important, or they have some crazy grandmaster plan in development. You know, who really knows? It's kind of hard to tell when it's Nintendo, as you know. But overall, the Game Awards 2021, I enjoyed it, not to the extent I was expecting to. I was expecting to really love it for it to be on like the scale of E3. Unfortunately, no, but I did have the pleasure of hearing the orchestra play the Metroid Dread music, hearing Metroid Dread get an award, and then the acceptance speech. So I didn't walk away from the show completely disappointed, but I would have liked more. But regardless, I'm still going to watch the Game Awards next year, regardless of my disappointments. As I said, I like Jeff Keighley. What he does with the Game Awards by putting on this big show for gaming every year, I think is really admirable, and I respect that. Trying to put together this legitimate award show that solidifies video gaming as something substantial and legit, really, and that's something I really enjoy. And aside from E3, it's like the one big thing to get excited for in the year in the world of video games. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the aftermath and the fallout, I guess, of the Game Awards 2021. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What did you think of the Game Awards 2021? Were you happy with any of the awards? Did you get excited at any of the announcements? Were you upset that some games were missing? What do you think overall? Do you think next year will be better? Do you think this year was better than last year? I want to hear everything you have to say down in the comment section below. And yeah, with that all said, thank you all for watching and please subscribe. Novus Corvius out.